Hello and welcome to PDXCON Remixed and this workshop that is called Creating a Content Pack for City Skylines. This is a workshop that will have a featured Q&A section, so be sure to ask your questions to our presenters on our Discord channel while we do this. So I'm super excited, of course, to introduce our presenters of today. First, we will have Avanya, Samantha Woods, CM at Colossal Order, and also former content creator for cities. Welcome.
Thank you.
Then we have content creator Armesto, who is actually one of the creators of the newly announced and released CCPs for City Skylines. Welcome to you as well.
Hello. Well,
we also have
oh my God. Wait.
That's fine.
Oh my! I already got lost. No, I got confused. This will be released at night, right? So, evening.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, for the to say a good evening or something that will work, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Yes, sorry, please.
No, that's fine. We can do it again. No worries.
Sorry.
No worries. All right. Hello and welcome to PDXCON Remixed and this workshop that is called Creating a Content Pack for City Skylines. This is a workshop that will have a Q&A section, so be sure to ask your questions on our Discord to our presenters that we have with us today. And I'm super excited to introduce them. First, we have Avanya, Samantha Woods, CM at Colossal Order, but also a former content creator for cities. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then we also have our content creator Armesto, who is actually one of the creators of the newly announced and released CCPs for City Skylines. Welcome, Armesto.
Thank you. Boa noite.
We also have a special treat for you guys, as we have a dev diary from Bad Peanut going live right after this panel. So be sure to check out our forums to read all about that. But let's get this presentation started right now with Samantha, who will be talking about how it is to actually create a content pack and some tips and tricks for those who are interested in doing something similar. So the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I am excited to talk to you today about creating a content creator pack for City Skylines. Now, to start with, I'm just going to give a little bit of an introduction to who I am and what I do, in case you don't know who I am. So my name is Samantha, aka Avanya, as you might know. I have been making assets for City Skylines since October 2015. And before I started making assets for City Skylines, I hadn't done any sort of 3D modeling before. I had done a little bit of recolors for some other games, but I hadn't really created anything from scratch before. So it was quite new for me to get into. And the whole reason I started getting into asset creation was actually because I was, building my city, and I was creating this ore industry area in my city, and I had a lot of the same buildings spawn, and I wanted more variation. At the time, the workshop didn't really have much to offer for industry, so I started looking at how can I make something and add that variation that I want in my city. And that's pretty much how I ended up focusing on industry assets, which is most of what I've done. It just was an area where I felt like there was some variation missing, and it was something that I felt like I could contribute to the game. Besides assets, I've also created a couple of Steam guides, which mostly deal with asset creation, and I've been quite active in the City Skylines community in the past 6 years, helping out with mod troubleshooting, especially around the patch time when mods break, and if you play a modded city like I do, you sort of have to wait for updates and figure out which mods can your city work without and which ones do you need to wait for. Now, as mentioned, I have created a content creator pack for City Skylines. It's called European Suburbia and was released in October 2017 alongside with Green Cities. And if you've seen the pack or the images here, you will notice that it is not industry. And there's a couple of reasons why I decided to make something quite different than what I'd done before. One of the reasons was I wanted to prove to myself that I could do something different, that I wasn't just a one-trick pony. And another reason was that the industry buildings I was creating at the time relied on mods a lot of the time. And I didn't really have any great ideas for something that wasn't mod dependent, and for a pack it needed to function just no mods, just vanilla game. So I kind of looked at what else I could do and what I also was like interested in making. Ever since we got the high density style for European buildings, I had wanted to have low density European style suburbs. And there wasn't anything at the workshop really to fill that need. So I pitched the idea to Paradox, and thankfully they thought it wasn't crazy. So I started digging around for reference images. Because, for me, I really wanted to make a city like the cities that I live in or see every day. But there's probably a limit to how interesting Danish cities are to the rest of the world. And I definitely had in mind that this was a product I was creating, something that hopefully other players wanted to buy. So I wanted something that appealed to more players, but still filled the need that I had. And I spent a lot of time just diving into random cities all over Europe to find buildings that would sort of fit this idea of a European style, but that's quite hard to do because Europe is so different. But something that would appeal to multiple people and feel like home to a lot of players, hopefully. And I did manage to find quite a lot of buildings that were maybe not identical, but similar in countries like Scandinavian countries. I looked in Poland and Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, and the UK. And I with time, I managed to build up this little library of reference images of buildings that didn't just fit in multiple countries, but they also fit together and created a coherent style so that when you had a neighborhood full of these buildings, it would look like it made sense for them to be together. And I think the result came out like it's something I'm quite happy with, and it was definitely received quite well. So I did feel like I managed to achieve that goal of appealing to more than just, the 5 Danish City Skylines players. Now, there are some challenges to keep in mind when doing something like a pack or a job making assets. Basically, I was taking my hobby and turning it into my profession. And there were some things that I was aware of, considered ahead of time, and then there were some things that I hadn't really considered at all and discovered in the process that I needed to figure out and deal with. Now, as of course, something that I needed to consider was the scope of the whole pack, like what buildings will be in it, how many, what sort of variations and texture, and all of that practical stuff. There's also the time frame of it. Obviously, there's the difference of when making a pack like this, there will be a deadline and where everything has to be delivered so it can be implemented to the game. Where, making something for the workshop, I work on it when I feel like it and release it when it's done, whenever that time is. And in the process of this, we were discussing a couple of different time frames. I had a pretty good idea of how long it would take me to make all the buildings that I wanted to make. I was in the situation that before making the pack, I was unemployed. So I was already spending most of my day making assets for City Skylines. I sort of had that routine of going through the process every day, sort of treating it like a job, even though I wasn't getting paid for it. It was just my main thing I spent my day on. So I had a good sense of how long it would take me to make all of these buildings. And we were discussing 2 dates. One that was a little close, where I thought, I can probably do this, and then a later date where I would have more time. And luckily for me, we ended up settling on the later date, because I was only considering how long it would take me to make the buildings, assuming that I could work full time, 5 days a week, and not have any interruptions, and not have anything unexpected happen, which of course happened. Some of the things I weren't prepared for was the things that I didn't know about 3D modeling. Now, I've self-taught. Everything I know about 3D modeling, I've learned from YouTube videos and online tutorials and guides and looking at other people's models. So there is a lot about 3D modeling that I don't know. And I won't get into all the details of like little modeling things that I needed to learn. But I will mention a couple of things that I learned and that I have kept considering since I made the pack. One of them is snow. When Snowfall first came out, I actually considered this, and I looked at all the models I'd made at the time, see how they look with snow, and made any changes I needed to so they looked correctly. And then I forgot all about snow. Which is sort of funny because I play a snow city every year in December to get in the Christmas spirit. So you'd think I'd remember, but it was not winter at the time I made this pack, so I didn't consider snow. And that was some feedback that I got back after the delivery and some changes that I needed to make to the models to not have chimneys full of snow or covered terraces that were snowy. Another thing that I ended up learning is how to do renders, which is the images you see here of these 4 buildings. Now, that was not needed for the buildings themselves, but for thumbnails. Being used to creating assets through the asset editor, I had never dealt with thumbnails before. The asset editor does that for me, so I didn't need to think about that at all until I made this pack. It was needed for a couple of props in the pack, and it was not something that was super complicated for me to learn. It took a little bit of time, and beyond just doing cool renders like this to show off my models, having that extra control over what a thumbnail looks like has been something that has been really practical when I've made more complicated assets. But the big thing that I hadn't considered at all, and that I really should have, is that I'm somebody who's really prone to stress and anxiety. And I've always been like this. So I probably should have considered that making an content creator pack was going to be stressful. But, this was my hobby. This was the thing I did to relax. So why would that stress me? Well, because making something that is a product and putting it out there and hoping people will buy it just got me in touch with a lot of worries. I had days where I would just pretty much just break down and stress out completely and worry, was my pack going to be good enough? Was anyone going to be interested in buying it? Was it going to finish in time? Was it going to be accepted, or would I need to make a ton of changes to the models? And this is something I wanted to touch on because I know I'm not the only creative person who has these sort of challenges. And it's something that surprised me because I'd already put my models out there on the workshop, but this was very different. And luckily for me, I had that extra time to sort of deal with my stress and take days where I just didn't work on my models at all. I spent some time just playing other games to sort of relax now that my hobby was the thing that was stressing me out. But I actually also ended up making a couple of simple models for the workshop to sort of reconnect with that passion I had for making models for City Skylines and have that feeling of being appreciated by the community and reminded that generally there's a lot of players who like the things I do, so maybe all those doubts were just in my head and not something I actually needed to worry so much about. And I was still really blown away with the reception of the pack. There was so much positive feedback, and it was such a huge opportunity for me to just be through this process and see how the community was just excited about what I ended up creating. And if all of that hasn't scared you away from creating assets, then I have a few tips for getting into the whole process of it. The first thing is to start small. Even if it's not a project that you're super passionate about or the thing you really want to make, starting with something small and simple gets you through the process of creating an asset faster, and you get to that point of having made something that is now in the game for you and other players to use, which is, for me at least, the really rewarding and exciting thing about making assets. Another way to start out sort of small with City Skylines is to make a recolor of an existing model. Now, this could be a vanilla building or asset, or it can be something from the workshop. If you do end up doing a recolor of a workshop asset, make sure you have the permission of the original creator if you want to share it. But the benefit of making a recolor is you don't have to learn 3D modeling right off the bat. You start by just creating the textures and figuring out how the whole getting the model and the textures into the game works and how you set up the building or whatever so it works the way you want it to. And then you can always dive into the 3D modeling at a later point when you feel comfortable with sort of half of the process of asset creation. And some tips on how to learn is, of course, online tutorials of just learning 3D modeling and getting things into City Skylines. But looking at what other people have created is something I have found extremely helpful. There's a mod called Mod Tools that lets you export a model out of the game, and then you can look at it in whatever 3D software you use. I have done this for figuring out how to do staircases or railings or how detailed round things should be, so that I could get a level of detail that made sense for City Skylines and didn't, stress out my computer so it caught fire when I built a city. And have that level of detail that makes sense for the game, while also having something that looked good and looked realistic. Another great thing is to listen to the feedback you get. Now, I have this sort of love-hate relationship with feedback. I know it's the thing that makes me better, and I still hate it. And I have a couple of tips for, or at least how I've figured out how to deal with it. I never dismiss feedback when I get it. I take some time to think it over, and then I force myself to try it. Even if I think it's not gonna make it better or that my model is perfect as it is, I still give it a try after I've had some time to sort of get over myself a little bit. And usually it turns out that the person suggested something that makes everything better. Which can be really frustrating when you've put hours and hours into something and you really just want to hear how good it looks. But that sort of feedback, it has the benefit that somebody else who hasn't spent all those hours staring at the model, who hasn't, poured energy into it, they aren't so connected to it. They can spot those little things that I can't see anymore because I've been staring at it for hours on end. And another way I sort of deal with the frustration of hearing feedback is I focus on the positive comments, the ones that basically say what I want to hear, the thank yous, the people talking about how cool it is, how they love having it in their city. And when I first started creating assets, I actually screenshotted all of these comments and I put them into this huge image file. And every time I'd be frustrated about feedback, or if I'd start questioning, why am I doing this? Why is it worth sharing assets? I'd look at that and I'd read through all the positive comments and I'd sort of have my creative tank fill up again. And I would be reminded, this is why I love doing this. This is why it's fun to share. This is why I want to make more things. And tips wouldn't be complete without me giving you some feedback so you can figure out what might work for you. And this is sort of something I consider with everything I make, and that is that flaws matter. Everything that has been around for a while, especially things that are outside, tend to have all sorts of flaws. It can be cracks or dirt or colors that have changed in the sun or moss growing on things. All of those things help make something feel real, feel like it's something that has been taken out of a real city and put into the game. So if you are considering asset creation, I would definitely encourage you to try it. Even though it might sound that it can be frustrating, and it definitely can be at times, it's also really rewarding and something that I really love to do. And still do whenever I can find the time. And the only way to really figure out if it's something for you is to give it a try. Maybe it isn't. Maybe you find out it's not for you. Or maybe you find something that you really love and are really passionate about. And that's everything for me. Thank you for listening. As mentioned, I'll be around in the Q&A, so if you have any questions for any of the stuff I talked about, you're welcome to send them my way.
Thank you, Samantha. Super interesting presentation to hear from you. And a reminder to you guys that are listening, please make sure to ask any questions you might have to Samantha or Armesto on our Discord channel, and our presenters will then answer your questions as much as possible. And then let's head over to Armesto, who will talk about his newly announced and released CCP.
Thank you. Boa noite. Good evening. Well, I'm Andres Armesto. You probably know me as Armesto already. And I'm here to talk about, well, this newly content creator pack called Bridges Piers that I spent working a few times not so long ago. Well, let's see what it has. First, a bit about me. Well, I'm Armesto. I had been creating assets since 2016. I'm a 3D modeler, a professional 3D modeler, working for 11, 12 years in this. And since I discovered City Skylines, I decided, oh, I think this will benefit from having some buildings from where I live. And that was basically my main motivation to start working on Galician stuff mainly. And well, considering how the architecture is around here, I love to work with stone, granite, slate mainly, old buildings, historic buildings, even buildings that don't exist anymore. That's something that is very important to me. And some time ago, I discovered that, well, we don't have a lot of bridges in this game, like proper bridges. I mean, apart from the vanilla ones, what about those old, medieval, ancient bridges that are, well, at least around here in every single city? So when I got the call to make a content creator pack, I said, I think this is the moment, not only for well, the community in Workshop that has already a few ones, but also for any other players in consoles, etc. So why bridges and piers? So the main thing is, yeah, not everyone has access to workshop models, so let's give those other players the ability to play with them, and also try to make them nice. I mean, nice bridges should be everywhere. I try to consider a lot of inspirations for this, like where even, from which places, what should I make more. And I ended making a mix between European and some American even bridges that are a bit more modern. And for example, I got a great inspiration from Paris, where I feature a few bridges from that single city, and a few more from the United States, Washington, Chicago. Also some from where I live, because they are bridges that I know and I like and I saw myself. So I think that was important. I also consider that it was very important not to only give one type of bridge. I mean, gameplay is also pretty important. So players should be able to not only use, for example, a 2-lane road. What if you want an avenue? You have that. I decided to, at least for roads, make one European and one American version for each one, for 2, 4, and 6 lanes. Then even one more modern, but still nice and different highway, and even some trains in that case. Also, another part of the content creator pack, because it's not only bridges, as you can probably tell by the name, Bridges and Piers. So, I mean, I thought when I did this about a city with a river. So, okay, you have your bridges to cross the river, but what's the boundary between land and river or even sea? Also, I needed something to put there, some walls, something. So we have keys in the game. Well, we have one key in the game, so why not have more? So that was the second part. Yeah, in this case, I decided to go for City River Key, which is also based in Paris once, which has several variations. I also, and this is actually, let's call it, inspired by Samantha here. I managed to put people over it, so people will use it as a pathway. So you can actually use them to connect your city too. So people will use it, which is actually pretty nice. In some cases, they have two levels, so two distinct levels, and they will use both. There are sometimes stairs, so it doesn't look weird. And I also added, well, as a little detail, two actual piers, like the structure where ships will stop. Unfortunately, that's not possible without the mass transit DLC. So they are decorative, but hey, if you want to give to your city a nice touch with them, you can do it. They fit pretty well with the bridges and the keys and everything. So I think it all fits together pretty well. Also, there is another type of key which is more based on a seawall. So it's taller, stronger, let's say more rough to withstand against the sea, not against river floods. Which also I even prefer it to the other one. I mean, I like very much how that one turned on. Okay. So, how to make this, actually? This was a pretty interesting process. The first thing is to get inspired. I mean, what should I do? In some cases, for example, previous assets I made for workshop, they were something I just draw on my 3D software, just inspired by all the bridge I saw in my life, and decided to make something on my own. But in this case, I wanted something with quality, and for that, I decided not to trust that much my my inspiration and design capabilities. So I decided to go around the world, as I said, in Paris, Washington, Galicia, Chicago, and take inspiration from what's already built, what's iconic. And I didn't want to completely make like exactly a copy of what's in real life, but try to adapt it to the game. So I have to take some artistic license, usually because of game mechanics. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can't do with well, assets or networks in general because it will look weird or it will be way too complex to implement in the game. So I have to get to a compromise where it works, it looks fine, but it still looks good, like and realistic. Another really important thing for me was to try to get the most quality of this, also in a compromise with optimization. So I can't make a bridge that is so heavy because of the textures. I don't know, going 4K or things like that. I have to go to a compromise where it looks good, the closest you can get, that you won't see the pixels, or at least try to not see the pixels. So, but without making it too complex, too heavy. So that's also one of the, for me, most complex parts actually of 3D modeling, which is understanding that compromise and getting to do it properly. And in this case, it was actually one of the most difficult things because I usually tend to model in high detail, but I also had to understand, well, I mean, this is going to run on all kinds of computers, consoles, even. So I can't go over with this. So it has to work for everyone, has to be democratic in that sense. So yeah, I mean, I think I managed to get a good compromise between those. So they should run fine. I will recommend not to use all bridges for every single street of your city, but you can put a good chunk of them. Don't worry about that. And well, talking about that, I want to also talk about what I like the most about this pack. Maybe I'm being a bit chauvinistic with this, but the thing I'm the most proud about are actually the 2 Galician bridges I did. Not because they are Galician, but because, well, there's a let's call it running joke that I also started about me only knowing how to make assets made of stone, like buildings made of stone. Yeah, I'm pretty good at it. I mean, I recognize it. I can throw flowers to myself about that. I think I'm pretty good at stone buildings, okay? But not metal buildings. I always said it. No. I don't make metal structures. I don't make truss structures. Oh, that's such a mess. I don't want to do that. But well, in this case, I like these 2 bridges, which, by the way, are Ponte de Ume and Redondela. You can look for them if you want. They are pretty nice in real life too. And well, I tried, and I was surprised how well they turn. Yeah, they turn. I like them. I mean, they are actually my favorite ones in the whole content creator pack. And I mean, it was pretty complex. It's a complete different method of working. It's not aligning stones, but aligning rivets. It's kind of different stand. I actually started scared, then I hated it a bit, and in the end, I actually enjoyed it. So, gotta say that I'm pretty proud of how this turned on. Well, now kind of relevant thing. Kind of relevant thing for how to use this is that, first of all, how do you want to use the content of this pack is completely up to you. Freedom is one of the keys of this game, being able to do whatever you like. But in case you want to go for, I don't know, let's call it realism, I have a few tips, because I mean, the game allows you to use them in whatever way you want. But that doesn't mean that you should. For example, considering that this bridge, that, by the way, you're seeing a good bunch of them there in the screen. Considering how these bridges are, they don't curve. Like, they are usually straight from one point to another because they are usually old, and constructing bridges is difficult. So the more it has of a curve, the longer it is. And that's a waste of materials, a waste of resources, talking about real life, of course. So yeah, they usually go from point A to point B. It's recommended that they are not curved because they will look a lot better. Also, it's also pretty good, I think, to not elevate them too much. They are supposed to be low pass bridges, let's call them. I mean, kind of a special ferry can pass under them, no problem. But they are not supposed to let your usual transatlantic go under it. They are supposed to be in a river. You don't, except you are in a city with a lot of hills, you usually get a bridge that is like 10, maybe 20 meters over the water level. So try to not go too high with them. You can. I mean, you can make it 200 meters tall if you want. If that's it won't be flying. Don't worry about that. But you want to go for realism, that's a good way to do it. Also, another thing that when I was testing these assets, I discovered, and well, I mean, you can do intersections. You can have a junction. You can have a street light in the middle of the bridge. But again, that you can doesn't mean that you should. It will look weird. I don't recommend it. So those are my three main tips for realism of how to make a good use of this pack. Keep it straight, don't make them too high. Please don't make junctions on them. And yeah, one of the best ways to achieve a good-looking city for me is look at real cities. You have several tools nowadays over the internet to see cities from your own house anywhere in the world. And the best source for inspiration to real life is usually real life. Try to make sense. I mean, keep it keep it fair with gameplay, of course. We all want our city to success and not enter bankruptcy, but yeah, try to get inspired by real life. I think that's how the best builds appear. I think you can be very proud thanks to that. But well, I think that's all I had to say by now until I get your questions. I hope that I will be answering just after this. So, obrigado, thank you, and good evening.
Thank you both, Samantha and Armesto, for super interesting presentations about your content packs and tips and tricks in general. We will now head over to our live studio to answer your questions that you put on our Discord. So let's see you there.
All right, that was a great presentation. I mean, I was listening the whole time. I feel teached. Welcome to the Q&A section.
Boa noite.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you think the questions are gonna? Do you think they're gonna be good? Do you think they're gonna be good questions? How do you think chat has been?
I mean,
Hopefully,
please,
hope there's some
please.
good ones.
Yeah,
We'll see.
Shouldn't
okay,
be a problem, I think. I expect the best.
all right. I mean, this one's a little bit, personal to me, I would say. We have a question here from Daishi. How much time does it take roughly to go from concept to a fully realized asset in game?
Oof, you want this one?
Well, I can comment on it. It depends a lot on the asset in question. Something simple like some of the warehouses I've done those in like 6 hours, I think, in a day, from just deciding I wanted to do one to having the finished model in game. And then I've had stuff like I think my power plant is like the most complex thing I've done, and that's just taken months to do. And then there are the assets that I'm still working on 3 years later. So, yeah.
Know this feeling. Yeah, more or less like that. Like 4 or 6 hours for a simple house, but then, I don't know, a cathedral, a landmark, let's say, we can go over 70 hours, 80 in several weeks or even months. So, yeah, it depends a lot.
All
Yeah,
right.
I think some of the stuff I've done up to like 200 hours on some assets to just finish them, so it can vary a lot.
Crazy. That's crazy. That's a lot of time. Let's see. Yes, if you want to have your question asked, you do have to join the Discord and ask it in the right channel under the City Skylines Creating a Content Pack channel. So just find it and ask your question. But all right, let's do the next one. This is a question from the new guy. How do you decide what type of thing you need for a content pack? Like, how do you pick?
Well, I mean, in my case, as it's the most recent one, let's say, I just ask myself, what I like to do, what I enjoy, what I think I can do right, and what people missing. I mean, the people that has workshop, has a lot more to choose from, but what about the people playing in other platforms? What they will appreciate? And for me, the answer was, some variation for the bridges and keys. I mean, you know the story, right? After that.
And yeah, for me, it was a question of thinking about something that I felt I was missing in the game, and also something that wasn't already available. So, I didn't want to compete with the workshop assets. And like I mentioned in the presentation, ever since we got the European style for high density, I've wanted low density European buildings. So that was sort of my first idea for that.
Yeah. All right. Let's do the next question. So many questions are popping in. This question is by Black Eagle. How do you cope with the loss of creativity, and where and how do you reboot those ideas? If you're ever in a slump or in a creative little jam, do you have a special trick?
I play the game. Actually, it's probably like sometimes I will get inspiration from something I see out in the city, but a lot of times it's just from playing the game, and then I'm building up my city and hit an area that is missing something. I go look in the workshop, can't find it, and then I'm like, I want to go make that. Or it can be somebody, like a screenshot I see somebody's put something together with procedural objects, and I'm thinking, well, that should be an asset. I can go make that because that's faster than doing it with PO, for me at least. Or just inspiration or ideas from the community sometimes as well.
Yeah, I mean, basically that, except the PO part. No, the PO.
You are wrong, and you know it.
Sorry.
Well, it's easy to just make the 3D model.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, yeah. Like, why even trying to learn that? I took my years to learn how to model in 3D.
All right, this is a question aimed towards Armesto, so I guess, Sam, if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. This is a question from Cuboid. Who is your favorite mod maker?
Oh, no. I mean, I gotta say, the creator of Node Spacer actually helped a lot with things like, for example, these bridges. But, I mean, the day if anyone makes someday something like building variations, but working properly, I think that will be my favorite modder ever. So, wink, wink, Kuwait.
Yeah, I'm not touching this one.
I figured as much.
Smart.
All right, a question from Akila Soul. What do you enjoy most in making assets? And what do you enjoy the least?
My favorite part is probably the finished asset, like getting ready to release it, and then the response from that's seeing people use my assets in screenshots. That is the biggest thing. I still get super excited when I see a screenshot with my asset. I was like, oh, I made that. Absolutely my favorite part.
I think, I mean, seeing that people is enjoying it, it's a great feeling, to be honest. And in the part of actually making it, I think is when you are super bored and I want to make this, but I don't feel like doing it, and you start forcing a bit yourself to do it. But after half an hour, you actually start to pick the speed with it, and suddenly you realize you spent already 10 hours and you don't want to stop because, oh my god, I'm so rushed doing this, and you don't want to stop, and it's such an amazing feeling. And the worst part, by the way,
feel that
is
feeling
trying to do something, trying to do something and not finding plans.
Oh,
that's the worst.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, no references.
Yeah, no references.
That is frustrating.
The worst.
All right. I mean, chat, if you want to ask more questions, do join the Discord. I have a question. And I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not a little bit hurt by what this answer might be, but Mesto, you didn't tell me you were making the CCP for the longest time. And I want to know how long you didn't tell me. How long did it take to make your CCP?
Oof. Since I know I had it, or since I started it, actually.
Since you started.
No, but I mean, it was a few months. It was a few months, and trust me, it was super hard with some people to try to shut my mouth about it because I really would like to share it, but I mean, I couldn't, and I didn't. So it was a secret. Also, it feels super great to when I see that you actually know what's happening, to see the reactions of the people, like, oh, you were doing that and you didn't tell us. I mean, we know why you didn't tell us, but goddamn you. It's a super amazing feeling.
I'm crying on the inside a little bit, but I accept the answer. Samantha, how long did it take for you to make European Suburbia?
I think it was 3.5 months or something. 4 months if we count like from we initiated like the talks about it until delivery. And then I sat on it for 3 months or something before it was released. Of just like, what's gonna happen now? I'm just waiting for it to come out. That was worse actually than making it.
I guess a specific question for like a specific asset, but what was the hardest asset to make? What was the one thing that was like, like it doesn't have to be like an asset, I guess, but what aspect was the hardest?
Oof.
Of like an
Everything.
asset.
Answer you.
That is a good question.
Okay, I have it. Something.
Okay.
So you can think instead. I think actually, to make a self-reference, I think this is my biggest project, the biggest thing I will ever do, which is what I said on the start of that City Builders episode about the Cathedral of Lugo. Because, when I made that building again for the release of that video, I tried to put so much effort into that. It was so much work, and I struggled so much because trying to make it, every single detail, everything that was there, I wanted it to be in the game too. So such a struggle to make that, but a worth struggle.
Yeah, I think working inside, like finding the right balance of between like the limitations of the game and the level of detail, that can be such a challenge because, when you're looking at the 3D model, you can zoom in so close and you just want to add all these little details, especially if you have like really good reference pictures. You want to get it all in there, and then if you put it in City Skylines, then, you need 2 graphics cards to run just a scene with that or something like that. You gotta also like say, okay, what can I sacrifice in these details, or what can I just paint on the texture and not model so that it will actually run for people as well.
Yeah. Good answers. All right, we have a question here from Brain Gamer. What do you think about the Indian architecture, and do you have any thoughts about making a content creator pack for that? I guess I'm gonna envelop one of my own questions in that. You guys have made pretty local stuff. Would you ever feel like expanding? Branching out?
I would really love to. I've thought about it, but haven't had like the time to do a larger style project like this again. But I have like thought about what sort of parts of the world are just not covered yet, and would that be something I could do? I would probably need to like ask the community for reference pictures, because local stuff I can just go around my own town and get some ideas, and then Google Maps you can get a lot of references with if there is street view. But once you start moving out into the parts of the world where there's not a lot of street view, or there's not like the 3D Google Maps, it gets a lot harder to actually make those kind of buildings.
I kind of expanded. I started here in Lugo, in Galicia, because, I like to do make stuff that I can see in my day-to-day. But I also made kind of a lot of stuff of Italy, because I love Italy. Okay, that's it. I love Italy. And I also tried some landmarks from around the world, because I just like them. Okay, no one made them for the workshop. Okay, I will. I enjoy it. So, but expanding into so very different styles, or architectural styles, it's a lot difficult, and I will have to understand those styles first before trying to recreate them, because I feel that there's supposed to be a respect there that maybe I can't fulfill as I would like. So I prefer to stay local or let's say Mediterranean in that sense.
All right, we don't have a ton of time for many more questions, but we're trying to squeeze as many as we can in. This is a question from Black Eagle. What is the assets that you've loved the most to create? Like, if you had to pick one, which one would be like your absolute favorite?
Santa Maria del Fiore, Cathedral of Florence, Italy.
Easy.
Yeah.
Didn't even have to think about it.
I do. It's like picking favorites. It's not my strong suit. I think it's probably there's a couple of houses in European Suburbia that I am really, really proud of, and that I just love. Like whenever I find them in my city, they might be my favorites.
Yes. Yes. All right. Let's try to get one more. Is there anything that you'd never want to make? Like, is there anything that you're like, no, absolutely never an asset of this? Without being mean to architecture or whatever.
Oh, no. Please. I mean, I had the running joke of, I will never make metal structures or truss structures, but I debunked myself already with this content creator pack, so... I don't know. Probably something very organic, like trees or stuff like that, because I don't know. It's not because, I mean, they are beautiful, but we have great creators that know how to handle that. I'm not one of those.
Yeah, I would like to try and do something organic one day, but I feel like I am just
Good luck.
so out of my depth. And we have so many great creators like to compare to. It's like, yeah, I don't think. I've also considered like citizens, but I'm a little bit scared of like human models as well.
Still organic.
Yeah, I think I'll just stick with like dirty warehouses. That I do that well.
You do it really well. All right. Yes, I want to try to squeeze another question in, but I don't think we have the time. Sadly, it's been really fun to do these live.